Hey guys, now I'll be talking about development of interatrial septa. We know development of interatrial septa divides the primitive atrium into respective right atrium and the left atrium. We know there is a junction between the primitive ventricle and primitive atrium called the atrioventricular canal. This is the atrioventricular canal. Let us consider. In the atrioventricular canal, there develops a cushion-like structures from the anterior and posterior part. So these cushions they develop towards inside like this and finally forms a septum-like structure. This septum is called septum intermedium. The septum is called septum intermedium that divides the atrioventricular canal into the right tract and the left tract. Now, there is another junction between the primitive atrium and the sinus venosus called the cyanoatrial orifice. Now, what happens to the cyanoatrial orifice? We know cyanoatrial orifice through this by enlargement of cyanoatrial orifice, most of the body and right horn is absorbed into the right atrium. Now, what happened to the cyanoatrial orifice is this get incorporated into the right atrium like this. See, consider this as a right atrium. We told that septum intermedium has formed. The formed septum intermedium is this one. This is septum intermedium. Now, this cyanoatrial orifice get incorporated into the right atrium like this is the right valve and this is the left venous valve. This cyanoatrial orifice is fused with the wall of the atrium by means of the septum splurium. Now there forms a septa from the roof. This is the septa formed. As it is first formed, this is called septum primum. What is the fate of the septum primum is it tries to come and close to this septum intermedium. But what happens if it completely closes this? There should be a flow of blood from the right to the left atrium. We know in the fetal circulation, as lungs are not developed, blood flow from right to the left atrium like this. But development of this complete structure will not happen so. That is the reason why before the septum primum meets the septum intermedium, an orifice is formed like this. As the first formed orifice, it is named as ostium primum. Ostium primum. As ostium primum. But this septum primum, it will not listen to anyone. It keeps on growing like this continuously. What happens is this septum primum is lost and the this ostium primum is lost and septum primum comes and meets the septum intermedium. But this phase of meeting the septum intermediate, this is only temporary because now blood has to flow from right atrium to the left atrium. No, so here another change has taken place. Though the bottom portion has met the septum intermedium, now this is lost, right? Septum intermedium, few cells in the upper part of the septum primum undergo programmed cell death called the apoptosis. Now what happens is here forms the another foramen like structure as it is formed next. It is called ostium secundum. That formed here before is called ostium primum, which has got degenerated, and now that formed above in the upper part of the septum primum is called ostium secundum. Now what happens is another septa arises from the roof towards the right side like this, towards the right side to the septum primum. As it is formed later, this is called the septum secundum. The septum secundum, unlike the septum primum, do not try to come and meet the septum intermedium, but the septum secundum moves down but do not meet the septum intermedium but move down till the lower margin of the ostium secundum like this. Till the lower margin of the ostium secundum only it keeps on moving. So after the septum secundum has overlapped the ostium secundum, this ostium secundum is renamed as foramen ovale. So foramen ovale is nothing but the ostium secundum after the formation of the septum secundum till its lower limit, that is called the foramen ovale. So this septum secundum is a ridge like structure. Septum secundum is like a ridge like structure. It fuses with the left venous valve and the septum splurium. Now, we know the septum secundum is a rigid structure, whereas the septum primum, this is a flap-like structure. What happens is, after the birth, the left atrium, pressure will increase because lungs start functioning, and it sends the blood through the pulmonary veins. So now what happens is, septum primum, it fuses with the septum secundum. So how is this fusion happening is, we know this, we have already told the septum primum is acting like a flap like structure, but septum secundum is rigid structure. Now what happens is, all of this goes away and it fuses like this. The septum primum fuses with the septum secundum. So when you look from this aspect, from the right side, you could see like a oval-like depression seen here. That oval-like depression is nothing but the fossa ovalis. So the lower free edge of the septum secundum, it forms a ridge over the fossa ovalis and arches over like this, over the fossa ovalis. This arched structure over the fossa ovalis is called the limbus ovalis. This, finally, we could see the development of the interatrial septa like this. See, like this, the interatrial septa is formed. Okay, thank you guys, thank you for watching my video.